Did you hear that? Crucifixus, a Latin word. What's that to do with our cantata BWV 12? This crucifixus, that's the B minor mass, isn't it?
Rudy, it definitely is the B minor mass. But Bach used the choir number 2 of cantata 12 for the mass in B minor some years later. So I think Bach was very fond of this movement. I'm sure he thought that he had done a good job when composing it. Yeah. We are talking today about cantata 12, weeping, wailing, worries, woes, in its English translation. It is a cantata written in several movements, of course. It begins with a Symphonia, not with the choir I just mentioned. Choir is number 2. And it's followed by a recitative, quoting part of the Bible, of the Gospels, and then, remarkably, by 3 consecutive arias, for alto, for bass, and for tenor. And the cantata closes, of course, with a final chorale. I would love now to ask you, Rudy, to explain to us a few of the musical key ideas of the opening Symphonia of this cantata.
If you look at the title, Weinen, Klagen, Sorgen, Zagen, miserable situation. People are really down the dumps. So a music in minor, you've got the bass, going, the stone is heavy to carry, the violas, there are 2 viola voices. That together. Adagio assai. Very, very slow. And so on. The violins, the first and the second, pause, like sighs. If you listen to that together, the bass, at some parts the violins just go along, stop, don't stop, and then they go again back to those little short motifs. And then the solo instrument is the oboe. I'll play that with everything together now. And so on.
So thank you, Rudy. Let's listen to the beginning of the Symphonia. And after this instrumental Symphonia, we get to number 2, the choir, which is the movement that gives the cantata its name. We said it already: weeping, wailing, worries, woes. Anguish and despair are the bread of tears for Christians who bear the mark of Jesus. So Christians, to be a Christian means to suffer, to bear the sign of Jesus, the cross, not just to hope to get to heaven sometime, but to be like Jesus in his suffering. I wonder, and this is what I would like to ask Rudi, how does Bach depict this musically? I'm sure there is a lot to say.
You've got the first big important item, it's the bass. Called a passus duriusculus, a hard pathway. Used a lot by composers. You can make variations. Or and what does Bach do? Weinen, Klagen, Sorgen, Zagen. You heard those syncopations, you heard that the Vorhalt, and all sorts of harmonical developments. Now, you see, the B minor Mass is also very complicated. The first part, the Kyrie and the Gloria, was done in 1733, yes. And then, like my knowledge is, at the end of his life, he started to make this Mass. So it's many decades after Bach, he remembered the piece and said, I think that might be something. He set it down into E minor because it was in another connection. Crucifixus. You've got crucifixus, you've got 4 syllables, and Weinen, you only 2. So you just change it. Weinen. And then he does crucifixus. That's the idea of a parody.
And let me ask you another question regarding the keys, the tonalities. So, Weinen, Klagen, Sorgen, Zagen is in F minor.
Yes.
And
But
then
don't forget, the A was 1 tone higher. So the pitch was high. F minor, then he came to Leipzig. And in Leipzig, the pitch was 1 tone lower. So he had to put up the music that it sounded the same high. And for the B minor Mass, then he just took E minor because the piece before and the piece after wouldn't have been finely connected together if it would have been in another key.
so lots of complicated issues, harmonically, theologically, musically. The best thing we could now do would be to listen to the music.
That's a good idea.
So there we had the anguish and despair. All of these worries are the bread of tears for Christians who bear the mark or the sign of Jesus. So I would like to get back to this issue of what it really means to be a Christian. There is a lot of suffering involved. I'm very intrigued by this issue, Rudy, of the sign of Jesus. What can you tell us about it?
The sign of Jesus. Do you remember, ladies and gentlemen, the sign of Cain? Cain and Abel, that story at the beginning of the Bible. Reminds me a bit of that. You belong to the group of Jesus, and then you've got the sign. What does the music say? Here. Melancholic, not terribly hard and heavy. Like in the Messiah's, his yoke is easy. Perhaps you remember that from the oratorio of George Frederick. But then at the end, it gets quite hard. Die das Zeichen, with the chromatic. And then the tenors, da, da, di, da. Once again, basses, then the tenors and the altos, di, da, da, di, 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 di. So you've got minor, major. And in another cantata, it's a very early one too, 106, Actus Tragicus, it's got exactly the same melody, and it says, die da sterben müssen. So it seems to be not quite easy to take the Nachfolge, to follow Jesus.
And also, ich will den Kreuzstab gerne tragen. It's the same idea.
That's BWV 56. Ich will den Kreuzstab. This, one hears it, the Kreuzstab. I'm happy to follow you and take the cross onto my shoulder.
So let's now listen to this motet-like working of the sign of Jesus. Recitative number 3 for alto. We must traverse great tribulation to enter the kingdom of God. It is a word from the Apostle Paul, and as we know, Paul was able to win very many people to believe in Jesus, but he had also trouble, and he was, as we know, executed at the end of his life for it. And so we must traverse great tribulation. Trübsal, it is a word that means tribulation, but it also means persecution. That's actually what happened to Paul. And the recitative is, musically speaking, really mind-blowing, isn't it, Rudy?
Definitely. Listen to the chords. And the alto sings. Wir müssen durch viel Trübsal, durch viel Trübsal, wir müssen durch viel Trübsal, durch viel Trübsal, ihm das Reich Gottes heimkehren. But if we listen to the voice of the violin one, you could just sing it once. It's a major scale.
D major.
Yeah, so he combines that. Come, Xoán, we'll try to do that together, and afterwards we'll hear our solution of the orchestra. Wir müssen durch viel Trübsal, wir müssen durch viel Trübsal, in das Reich Gottes heimkehren. May I mention the same thing happens in the Matthew Passion. La da, la da, li da, 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 in another harmonization. But what strikes me is it changes its character. The major scale changes its character immediately when you have these harmonies to it. Bach, isn't he grand?
And after this incredible recitative, we've got 3 arias in a row. The first of them, aria number 4 for alto, begins with the words cross and crown are bound together. We have, of course, that from a Revelation when we can read, "Be faithful unto death, and I will give you the crown of life." What an incredible idea! Cross as a symbol of humiliation on the one hand, and crown as a symbol of the greatest honor, are bound together. Rudy, what did you think about this?
Listen to the melody of the oboe. The rolling motifs, and then the melancholic energy, but it's somehow still strong. And then in the chorus of the text it says Kampf und Kleinod. How would you translate that?
Yeah, we've got our translation here, contest and prize. Yeah. So Kampf is a fight, and Kleinod, prize.
Is the jewel.
The jewel.
Yeah. What I love of this text of Salomon Frank, we imagine it's him, is the K and K and K and K. Kreuz und Kronen, Kampf und Kleinod. Just a little remark. That's what I enjoyed of the English translation. Sorgen, Zagen. That's completely different, but in English you've got the wo. What was it called?
Yes, it was weeping, wailing, worries, woes.
Yeah,
so
and
v.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the Kampf, the fight, at the end of the first part does Kampf und Kleinod sind vereint. Double cadence. You got the feeling this takes time to win the battle.
Shall we listen to how Bach constructs this densely woven aria? Let's do it. The next aria is number 5, an aria for bass. Ich folge Christo nach. I follow behind Christ. In this aria we get now I, the first person, speaking and saying that I will remain faithful to Christ in all circumstances. Musically, we have things going on that we like very much, Rudy.
Listen to the first violin. Dun, dum, din, 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 ti, di. Opening up with the text, Ich folge Christum nach. It does it in a canon. Here's the first violin. Bum, 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 bi, di, da, di. Those long notes, and then here the cadence. Then the second violin together. Bum 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 bim bim bum ba da da di 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 di. Long notes di 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 da 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 di di di. Bum 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 bum. And then the bass does the same as the basso continuo. Bum 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 pi la 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 dim di la 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 la. Ich folge Christum nach. And then in the bass, and then the bass singer does it again. It's the whole time this motive as a little imitation.
Let's listen to it.
Ich folge Christum nach, von ihm bin ich ich folge Christum nach, von ihm bin ich nicht lassen. Liebe unterlassen, im Wohl und Ungemach, im Liebe unterlassen.
Im Wohl und Weh. That's also the. Being happy, being unhappy. I try to kiss. What is he kissing, this bass singer?
Well, he's kissing the humiliation of Christ of all things. What a thing to kiss.
Ich küsse Christi Schmach. Bach uses this. You hear, it's a very melancholic way of embracing Christ and all his passion and his cross.
So there we find again this somewhat positive idea of the humiliation of the cross, which we gladly bear.
And then Jesus is still very important in the next piece too. Perhaps you could explain us the aria, the third aria for tenor, basso continuo, and obligate instrument. You will hear the trumpet.
Well, the aria remain true, all pain will surely be but slight. Here we have got again the idea that we mentioned early on. The yoke is easy, the yoke is light in a way. And what you just mentioned is, I think, the key issue of the aria. We get the cantus firmus with the trumpet intoning the Jesu meine Freude, the chorale, which is almost an impossible thing with this trumpet, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's this Jesu meine Freude, then going up. It would have been no problem to take it with the oboe, but he took the trumpet, so he must have had a great trumpet player, or he thought it's really hard to get to that point. Jesus is my pleasure. I know he will help me at the last end, and my yoke is somehow bearable. And you've got this in the basso continuo. Ram tim pam tim pam, tam tim tam tim tam, tam tim tan tan tam. It takes a long time. Dam dim to find the cadenza. Di da ra di ram din di da ra da da. Sei getreu, sei Jedum complex choral variation.
So did I understand correctly? 3 layers, the basso continuo, pam, pim, pam, pam,
Yes.
pam. The voice,
Yes.
singing the melody, and the trumpet up there with Jesu meine Freude.
Yeah.
Why don't we listen to it?
Be faithful, sei getreu, the last words of the tenor we heard. And then the chorale comes, which sort of closes the whole story. What would you say is this cantata in 1 or 2 sentences?
Well, apparently the first layer is all this sorrow and anguish and woes and so on, but it's actually not a cantata about sorrow, it's a cantata about joy. It's the transition of sorrow into joy.
We've got the Choral. Was Gott tut, das ist wohlgetan, dabei will ich verbleiben. very high, and then he puts upper voice onto it with the trumpets and the violins. Listen to that. You were talking of joy. Perhaps is that an answer that the cantata is created for the Sunday jubilate?
Well, from my intuition, I would say I'm quite sure, because jubilate means to celebrate, jauchzen, isn't it? And what is the pericope for the day?
It's Jesus saying, my dear disciples, I have to leave you. It's a farewell sort of story. And then he says, for a short time you will be very sad and you will have anxiousness, you will be persecuted, but after that the pleasure will be Magnificat. And of course the psalm of the day is called Jubilate, and that's why the Sunday is called Jubilate.
So actually everything fits in very nicely together. It's sorrow and it's anguish, but it's the joy, because whatever God does, it's rightly done.
That's the message of the last hymn.
Mascot